It's just been completely heartwarming. I don't know what I would do without the daily videos. But here we are at the end of this amazing tour with I really feel like we could keep going, but we got to get back to Los Angeles and do all of our other stuff there to expand this and to continue to grow with it. But it's been such a privilege meeting you all, and it is such a privilege for me to be called David's friend and to be out here on this journey with him. So without further ado, I'd like to introduce my dear friend, David Palmer. Technical difficulties. Dun, 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 dun.
Thank you guys all for being here. I know in today's world it's hard to get anywhere because Facebook's the best place to just chill in now, So why leave your house? But you guys all came, and that's a big statement, and that really means a lot to me because it's hard in 2018 to go anywhere. It's always like, do I really want to get up and go do this? Especially when, spiritually we're all going through a lot of shit all the time. Once you wake up, you're like, oh man, I don't know if I want to do this. I'm not in the right space today. But it's always weird, and I've been saying this on the tour, and David has said it well. The world cannot happen to you if you're not in it. And so when you get out in the world, the magic happens. And that's why I do these things, because I don't do it for the money, to be honest with you. I do it because it's important to connect with people and to share information all together. This really isn't about what I have to say today. It's what we all come to interact and learn from each other and talk to each other and all feel like we all have a common denominator spiritually, and that we all get to have some fun, and then we all get to have a great time. So I really appreciate that you all came out. It means a lot to me. Thank you. Now, we're on the Fate Train tour. Last stop, Dallas, Texas. And I'm not taking any of you guys home with me to California because that is the new secession and the new Confederacy, by the way, if you guys didn't know. So if you guys want to come and go join the new South, sorry, you guys ain't the South no more. And by the way, I'm not for that secession. I'm sure you guys know from my videos. I'm definitely not the most liberal astrologer out there. I'm definitely the most right astrologer out there, if you guys didn't know. Because it's good to be a right person. This Fate Train tour is all about why 2018 is one of the biggest platforms of creating what I like to call fate. Of course, fate and destiny have a very interesting mix. I had some conversations with my buddy Matt about this. Fate just is kind of there from this force. Destiny has a higher force that has a meaning for us all. And I think it's interesting when we look at 2018, and we all look at our place in our lives right now, because if we look at our place in our life, we all know that this year is bringing up one of the biggest decisions of our life, of either staying on a track or switching tracks. And that comes up secretly in all of our lives every day. Do I really want to stay on this fucking track? Or, oh man, is the grass really greener on the other side? That's a big question in people's lives right now. Now, every city that I did a special part for each city. Dallas is the luckiest because you guys get the end, so you guys get the whole fucking schlop all in one. So when we were in Denver, we did the future of relationships and how this year is affecting your relationships forever. And that was the one everybody wanted, you know what I mean? Like every time I went to like New York to talk about business, or I went to, Chicago to talk about the future of astrology, they're like, where's the relationship one? That's the one I really want to know. And I always felt bad because, it's like, man, I got to stick to business here and the money and all that stuff. Or I got to stick to the South because even though you guys are in the South too, but down there in Tennessee, I called them. I'm like, well, you guys aren't really in the South. And the whole room went, oh my gosh, no. And in Tennessee, we did the future of home and relationships, which was that the spiritual community doesn't have a home. We all feel scattered. And we all find places like the Future Life app or the Leo King's Facebook page. But if you think about it, it's too scattered, right? Everybody's like all over the place. There really isn't like a home or a feeling where everybody's can come to. When we were in DC, of course, it was the future of the government and what's going to happen with all these transits and how this year is such a stepping stone towards the biggest shifting in government we're ever going to see in our life. Of course, New York was not only business, but money and monetary exchange and commodities and stuff like that, the stock market, stuff like that. And when I did Chicago, people thought it was the future of astrology, like I was going to be saying, okay, there's going to be some new chart that comes out. Yeah, right. It was more like there's freaking aliens and we all know it. Here's the astrology and how to understand that the aliens are there. But Dallas is the future of the future. What? What's that? And what I mean by that is, we all know at this point that the future right now is going to be different than we've ever felt it before. We're on a cliffhanger that we all can feel towards diving into a new experience and a future that we've never felt. Now, of course, any left-minded individual would say, well, that happens all the time, But as somebody who follows astrology and sees cycles, this cycle that we are coming into right now is literally going to change the fabric of how we see life forever. And we will never be able to go back. And that's always kind of a, oh man, and it's really intense. And I want to start with, when we talk about this future, the biggest cycle that's about to happen in 2019. We have the planet Pluto, which is, of course, 248 years that comes around, the sun. And he's a weirdo, right? He's all the way out there by himself, scheming back there, going like, what the fuck are all these planets doing? And Pluto's really weird, too, because, if you take, for example, this is the sun, and here's Pluto. Pluto does this. Oh, I kind of want the sun. No, fuck you, I don't. And it goes way out. And then it comes back in and goes, oh, no, I want a little sun. No, I'm out. So every Scorpio in the room, you know how that one goes. Oh, yeah, I'm really with you. No, fuck this, I'm out. I need my space. And I want to see from behind and see what everybody's doing. So the fact is, from the beginning of the world wars, when Pluto started to enter into Cancer, it came to its closest part to the sun. So why, if it's a 248-year cycle, have we only gone about 80 years and Pluto has gone through half of the zodiac? Bingo. Right? So World War II, Pluto in Cancer? Oh, World War III. No, I'm just kidding. I was waiting for people on that one. Pluto is now in Capricorn, the opposite of Cancer. It's traveled halfway through the zodiac in 80 years. So Pluto has been flying. And finally it comes into Capricorn, where of course we all know the last time it was there was the Revolutionary War, the Boston Tea Party, the Declaration of Independence. There's a lot that goes down when Pluto comes here. Because what happens when Pluto leaves Capricorn is it goes back to its long cycle for over 100 years until it comes back all the way around to Cancer, and then it does a little 80 real fast. So you got to think that what we've experienced as a humankind through this last 80 years, because Pluto rules transformation, and it's ironic that in the early 1930s when Pluto was found, it was found at this spot that happened to be at the beginning marker point where it would go its fastest in humanity. And when it goes this fastest to humanity, we as a species go through transformation so fast, it's like, And now if you look at, it's so funny, when we look at the 1900s, right, or the 20th century, it's like, okay, the 50s were driving and eating at diners. The 60s were going to start smoking weed and being hippies. The 70s were going to be hippies, but we're going to have like TV and we're going to like, I don't know, we'll do the long hair thing and we don't know where we're going because we're so high. And then it's like, the 80s, it's like, okay, let's do a bunch of coke and, you know, HIV's out and Michael Jackson's out and yeah, and more coke. And then you get to the 90s and everybody's sober now and everybody's like into technology, and you get to the 2000s and then now it's like all blurred, right? So if you go from like 2003 to 2015, you're kind of like, well, I was on a cell phone and I was still watching that horrible reality show and I was on MySpace and now I'm just on Facebook. Like really, it's kind of like there's a blur now. There is no more kind of, because the transformation was so fast of Pluto. And now it's coming to stop that heavy, kind of quick transformational force, which if you kind of look from an outer perspective, and I didn't say this at any other show either, if you think about that, we're actually about to slow down the transformational force. And I think there's a reason, because imagine being like a freaking caterpillar turning into a butterfly and God shooting you out fast for a long time, you know. It's a little bit like, okay, right? It's like, okay, let's slow this shit down for a second. There's too many fucking butterflies. What's interesting is we have a cycle called the Pluto-Saturn cycle, which of course is in astrology what we call the gnarliest of the cycles, because it's Al Capone with his hitman, right? Pluto being Al Capone, the business, serious, this is what I need, go get, and then Pluto being the hitman, go fucking kill him, man. Forget about it. And so these two like to hang out every 33 years. And it kind of seems like if this was a movie, you know, it's not like we always hear about like some big thug and his hitman. It's not like they're running around the streets for years all the time. It seems like they get like a big moment and then they do it and then, okay, yeah, that's enough, you know. And the universe is like a free will universe, I guess you could say. So it's like, okay, there's your time. Well, we're in that time because Saturn on December 19th of 2017 entered in Capricorn. And guess what was in Capricorn? Pluto. And so 2018 is the coming together of these massive, intensive, harsh energies. The last time this happened was 1983 and 1984. It is. I was born with that. Maybe it's Maybelline. But the crazy part of that cycle in the 80s was it happened in the sign of Libra, which was the beginning of divorce. Because in the 70s, you know, it was like, I can't believe the Joneses are getting divorced. My God. In the 80s, it was like, I always knew it. She was a bitch. Right? And it was like common to become common. And relationships since that point have been fucked up because that cycle started and ends next year. So why do you think that if you think about these last 30 plus years, relationships have been really weird, from experimenting of you're going left, you're ugly as fuck, to, oh, you're going right and I'm gonna meet you and take you to dinner and fuck you and then find another one. Or the whole traditional aspect of relationships, which is Saturn, right? Saturn is tradition. When it's in Libra, and Pluto is the transformational death. Think of Pluto always as the Grim Reaper. So Pluto's taking traditions of relationships since the 80s and going, sorry. And that hasn't ended. So every traditional style of understanding of relationship has been tested, and those that hold those old traditions are sitting there on an edge like, how the fuck am I still doing this shit? Because the power of those old traditions were killed in the 80s. And it's hard. I mean, I'm just being real. It sucks to be real. You know what I mean? It's hard. Also, Libra deals with balance. It deals with beauty, and it deals with harmony, which unfortunately, I don't know if the last 33 years were the most beautiful and harmonious place I've ever fucking been in my life. Because everything has been out of whack. And everything has been so distorted as far as like so fast moving that there is no time to sit there and just be like, okay, I'm on the beach and I'm relaxing and I'm chill. No, we're moving into this. No, technology's moving this. Oh my God, we're doing this. So if you look at the fact that 2018 is the beginnings of the ending of that cycle, believe it or not, we are entering a time into where balance and relationships are all about to finally find their real, true position. But it's going to have to come from a new standpoint, not one from like the 1800s or the 1700s or anything like that. Because of course Pluto's in Capricorn, changing traditions since the last time it was there, which was 1760 through 1776 and so on. So if you think about the traditions that we hold as people, this is why knitting is dying. And I know there might be some knitters in here, but you guys are a very long lost, holding on, and I'm totally on your team. But there's not a lot of you left. This is why creating food at your own house has kind of died, and everybody goes out to dinner now, and somebody else makes the dinner. We can go on for hours and look at how all the traditions in the world over the last 248 years are dying. And what's the scariest part to me is when people try to attach to tradition and hold on to it when you know that cycles mean we can move forward. And what's hard about this is now they're happening in Capricorn. And Capricorn is the structure of everything. If you were to look at the human body, Saturn and Capricorn rules your bones. It rules your whole skeleton, because what holds your whole body together is that. That's why Capricorns are tough. That's why Capricorn rules the 10th house, which is career and business. Because what do you have to do? If you're losing money, I'm sorry, you're fired, and I'm not giving you any more money, and I'm not going to go rub your back on the way out the door, because that's illegal now. You know what I mean? Like, sexual harassment, he touched me. It's like the opposite of Capricorn is Cancer, where it's like, oh, let me take care of you. Let me give you love. Let me make sure you feel safe. But as these traditions end, there is no safety in it. There is no like, it's okay, I know you love your knitting, but there's no more people knitting anymore, and the store just closed down, so I don't know where you're gonna get your knitting. There's an Amazon site I can help you with. I don't know, but you'll make it through. Cancer is that, everybody's supporting me, whether it's my family, whether it's my best friends, whether it's anybody who gets me emotionally and will help me take care of that. It also is spiritually your own ability to take care of yourself. And what's difficult about this next transit coming in is comfort, security, home, family. These aspects are the place in which we are trying to achieve so hard. Yet there is so much heavy energy in Capricorn right now that it feels like you can't fully have that there. There's always something coming up. There's always a job to do. There's always some new thing that I've got to reach for in my life. And if you look at the world and you look at Capricorn, it's work. I always look at Capricorn, Saturn as the slave driver. Keep going, And it's hard because Cancer's the opposite, where we want to go on vacation and we want to have Mai Tais and we want to sit on the beach and we want to have a back rub and you want your wife or your husband to say, I love you. But, Capricorn time is like, I got to get somewhere because I have a fate and a destiny that I know I got to reach. And what does Saturn rule and what does Capricorn rule if it's on the negative side, is regret. The biggest part of what's going on in life right now is people dealing with regret for not choosing a path that they know they really should be on. And that's a very difficult one, because when it comes to picking this path, there is no cuddles bears. There are no people that will understand it, because when you fire somebody, it's like, you still gotta go eat lunch afterwards. Donald Trump did a good job of that on that show. You're fired. Okay, get the fuck out of here. And he's still doing it, yeah. But it's interesting in his chart, he's got the opposite. He's got Saturn in Cancer. He's got Venus in Cancer, which is an interesting dichotomy, because that's the opposite of what this is. There's a part of him that, in many ways, I think hides his true care, but he also, I think, has difficulties dealing with the emotions around it all. He does, especially for his family, where everything goes to his family, which is Saturn in Cancer. But what's interesting about this transit in our lives is, holy cow, what is the right path? And I want to help everybody see that if you take this 33-year cycle and you apply it way into the past, if you get all the way to 1517, was the last time Pluto and Saturn met up in Capricorn like they are today and through all next year. And that was the it was a revolution, but it was the Renaissance time. It was Leonardo da Vinci. It was people who were starting to realize, oh, yeah, this place needs a different structure. This place needs to change. This is my path. I have a destined call to do something, to show the world. And it was very uncomfortable for Leonardo da Vinci. He was gay. He was working for the Catholic Church. He was painting the pictures for them, but putting all the Illuminati symbols in all of them to help show people what was going on. So it was a very uncomfortable situation, because at any moment, you do something wrong. And what's interesting, if you take the last time before that Pluto and Saturn met, they met in 1282. And in 1282, it was ironic because the planet Jupiter had entered into Capricorn as well. And guess what's happening in 2019? Jupiter's entering Capricorn too. So we are actually about to experience the 1282s, which, if you do your history, was the end of the Knights Templar and the killing of the Knights Templar through the 1200s and the beginning of the Dark Ages. But, the Black Plague too, yeah. But that came in the 1300s, so I wouldn't trip out yet. But the thing is when you look at how the world changes, and if you look at how the 1200s were a time of, we need to control and make sure everybody listens to this Catholic message, right? Now, I'm talking from the Western world because I'm a Western astrologer, so I'll be honest with you, I've never been to China or Japan or anywhere, so I really don't know their history very well. But Western astrology, and if you look at it, it was an extreme time to tighten the noose belt on people, which is ironic because now we have the highest jobs in America that we've ever had, but is it really a good thing or is it a slave thing? These are the questions that come up in Capricorn because they deal with, oh my gosh, sure, you might have a job there, but is it something that feels that it's really what you want to do? Like that's your life purpose? The reason why I say this is because if you actually really dig deep and you go to the last time Pluto was in Cancer was when it squared Uranus like it just did, right? 2012 to 2015 was what we call the Pluto-Uranus square. That exact transit was the Depression. But it was because Pluto was in Cancer. So if you gave anybody a job, they would die for it. But now everybody, you can go on Craigslist, you can go on, fucking Facebook now has jobs. If you go on that, guess what? I'm too good for that shit, right? But back in the 20s, it would be like, oh my God, I'll take it. I don't care. You want me to lick your butt too? Okay, I'm fucking doing it. Fucking for a little bit of cornbread, I'm down. I am down. Throw that in the contract. Will you throw in a little bit extra soup too? I don't want to wait in the soup line. So we live in a world right now where there are extreme amounts of roads to take at any moment, whereas in the 20s there was like zero. Was it the military or the soup line or maybe one or two other lines of life? There wasn't much. Now we're in that complete opposite space, and we're mixing into this time of massive big brother control. Now in China, they've implemented CCTVs all over the place to check you out and scan you and listen to you. But in America, they don't need to do that because they're already doing that with your phone on Facebook. They already know what you look like. They already know what you like. They already know who you instant messaged last week. And it's interesting because censorship is what comes out of this transit. But it is always with Pluto manipulated to look like it's the opposite. So why do you think Facebook just recently came out with a new algorithm to make sure that we get all their information to only your friends and your family? Because if we give you information from other people, then you'll start hearing the truth. This is the scariest part for the spiritual community, because the spiritual community thinks right now it's on fucking fire. They're like LeBron James coming into the NBA Finals, like, we got this motherfucker. Yet they don't know what they're really dealing with here, is massive suppression. Fake news isn't about what's fake with political stories. Fake news was a manipulative ploy to make things like astrology fake. Oh, it hasn't been verified by any scientific community. You watch next year, censorship with Saturn and Pluto and everything. Every time Saturn and Pluto come together in Capricorn, censorship. That whole fake news thing and clickbait and all those things that have been coming out have been actually to scare away, or to not scare you, but to make you think you're protected. Don't worry, we have got rid of all the things that you shouldn't be listening to or hearing. All the YouTube community, since Pluto and Saturn have entered into Capricorn this last year, started getting kicked off YouTube for certain things. I don't know if you guys heard about it, but it's true. Friends of my own that were doing huge spiritual things, gone. One video that they did that just had something that wasn't right on an algorithm that YouTube now sees or Google sees as that they don't want, gone. And why do you think that the biggest deal that has ever happened with the FCC of making what's called the newest shift in the internet, it's actually because the truth is when you look at the internet, they're at a place right now where they want to have complete control of it from the company standpoint. And they want this because they don't want people to truly have any power over it and to spread information. And when you mix this with Uranus and Taurus, which has just entered, this is the battle for land physically and on the internet and other places. Where is the place for people to go to actually not feel like they're censored? Because now more than ever, censorship is going to be the biggest issue of spreading this light. Because the dark knows that when Pluto and Saturn come together, it's their time to destroy or hold on to. And when it's in Capricorn, it's censorship, it's rules, it's restrictions, and it's the bottom of the astrology chart. Most people think that the bottom of the astrology chart is Cancer, but the truth is it's actually Capricorn, because on the season, December 21st is always the bottom of where the sun is, and we are entering into a time in our life where Saturn rules lead. It rules iron. And this is like the ironclad that is hitting people in their life about the hardest choice, because the other part of Capricorn is it's a choice. And it's an extreme choice because Pluto's there. And it's a choice to take a road in which you know your fate and destiny will take you towards, and not letting the media or other people tell you where to go. Because the truth is, if we add Neptune to the equation, when was the last time Neptune was in Pisces? Does anybody know? 1848 through 1864. What happened during that time? Well, one, a civil war was on the brink. And what's happening right now? 2, there was this whole gold rush thing, and they got there, and there was no fucking gold anywhere, you know what I mean? Which to me is the cryptocurrency thing. Like, oh my God, everybody get into crypto, get into crypto. And then only like 3 guys have staked it with the big gold, and everybody else gets kicked out and killed, and you're left with a little. I grew up in California, so what do you do in 4th grade? You go pan for fucking gold. They make you pan for gold. Like, I remember panning for gold for like 5 hours, sweating, and I got like a little flake, and I was like, how much is this flake worth? 0.01 of a penny or whatever. I'm like, what the hell did you guys have me do this thing for? Knott's Berry Farm, what a waste of time. But if you also know what Neptune is the media, because it's invisible. That camera right there is pointing at me, and I'm a visual thing being popped onto your wall, but I can't smell how shitty your shit smelled to this morning. I don't know that you're naked watching me right now. I don't know any of that stuff. It's just a projection. It's the Great Oz, right? Like, Great Oz is a creepy dude who's definitely got a small dick in the back who tried to be really big and make himself look really good. But it was all a sham. So the media, when you get Neptune halfway through its sign, whenever a planet goes halfway through a sign, it is now, it's kind of like your motor in the morning. I know you guys in Texas, you know, if it's cold, you got to start it up and wait for it to warm up a little bit. Or if you got a diesel truck like me, you got to get those glow plugs waiting, and then, okay, you can start it. When it gets halfway through a sign, the engine's warm, ready to go. And Neptune is kicking into high gear right now with delusion, shape-shifting things. Always, what else does Neptune rule? Believe it or not, it rules deception. So in that 1800s time, not that there was deception with the Civil War, but there was this deception, especially with spiritual people, that they were clowns at the fucking circus. Because the circus came out during Neptune and Pisces, really big. And Barnum and Bailey started to come out right after that transit. And they started traveling on trains when all the trains came, which is ironic that every time Neptune and Pisces comes, there's this whole thing about the trains were being built across west. People were starting to lay the tracks down towards a west. But spiritually, we all don't know where the hell we're going. We're going towards this like unknown place right now where we don't know where the hell it is. And that's the weirdest part, is this time that Neptune's in Pisces, we are defining it by picking our true destiny. And that question is a hard one because with Neptune and Pisces, the media is trying to form your perception of how to live, which is the scariest part to me. And it doesn't matter if you listen to Fox News or CNN, they're both trying to have you live a certain way, right? And neither way is the right way. We all know this one. The only way is this third route, which is you paying attention to your deepest inner soul. And that's why we've gone through so much Scorpio. Because on October of 2012, Saturn entered Scorpio. And by the way, in 1983 and 4, when Saturn and Pluto were in Libra, guess where Saturn and Pluto met up again in 84 and 85? Scorpio. So it wasn't just only relationship issues, it was sexual stuff and issues that came out that we're finishing that transit to, which HIV came out right as Saturn and Pluto went into Scorpio in 85, 86. Boom! What the hell is this shit? I can die, man. In the 70s, it was like a fuck fest. I so wish I would have lived in the 70s. My Mars and Scorpio would have liked that one. But in the 80s now, you know, if you were in the condom world, you would have made some bank. And what's interesting about that time was we were all searching for who we are in the 80s. You have people like Michael Jackson coming out and saying, eh, eh. You have people that were There was also the biggest genocides, right? Because Scorpio is the sign of death. There was the genocides of killing massive amounts of people in other countries during the 80s. It was learning to find our deeper inner self. That's why cocaine was so big in the 80s, because Scorpio kind of deals with that, like, okay, I really want it. I don't give a fuck. I'm going to do it. And all that energy in all of us, relationship-wise, desire, sexual stuff. Why do you think sex has been such a big deal throughout the last 30 years with using it for advertising? I'm sorry, but Marilyn Monroe doing this was not very sexual today. If you watch that now, you would just be like, oh, that's a cute ad for Gap. But now it's like, what up? You know what I mean? It's like Kim Kardashian's on the beach with the fucking hugest ass you've ever seen in the world. What the heck is going on? And then you have pornography moving from the 70s of being like a proper film. Did you guys ever see Boogie Nights? How funny when you watch like the shift from the 70s and then to VHS, and how he doesn't really know how to deal with VHS. Like, oh my gosh, oh, just get in the limo and pull her in the car and fuck her good. You know, it was just like, whoa, what's going on here? People's sexual energy went through some massive shifts. And if you think about it, in the 80s, with this Pluto-Saturn, you have divorce now coming, and you have now people expressing their sexuality. Gay finally comes out, where it's like, fuck it, I'm going to come out, I'm gay, I don't give a fuck what you think, even though it was very hard for them. I feel horrible for them because people kind of still didn't know how to deal with that. Pornography came out. People started to really start to find, okay, this is who I am. But that has been another 30-year cycle that all of us inside have been trying to figure out inside what we are sexually, what we truly want in our life. Because there's one thing about Scorpio that I love the best. In Libra, it's like, we're a great partner. You do the dishes well, and I go and do work well, and you drive, and I don't drive, and whatever. We can think of a million things. Partnerships are partnerships. But Scorpio is like, I fucked you, but it really wasn't the best. Like, I got an orgasm, but I didn't get any like, I didn't feel like, I didn't have the sex face. Scorpio is the bottom, right? It is the deepest part of your soul. And I'm not afraid to bring up sex because guess what? That's the biggest taboo thing that is always everybody is so weird about in the press or everything is when you bring up sex, people go, oh my God, what is this guy talking about, man? But guess what? This is where all the planets are. Saturn went through Scorpio from October 2012 to August of 2015, Jupiter entered Scorpio. First of all, Mars went retrograde in Scorpio, its natural home in 2016. And here in 2017, bam, Jupiter entered Scorpio. And in 2018, Jupiter's leaving Scorpio. And Venus is entering in October and is going to retrograde and finish all the Scorpio shit. At the same time, all the Libra stuff's done because Venus will retrograde in November into Libra and go direct, and there will be no more major planets retrograding here for a long time. And there will be the Pluto and Saturn cycle completing and a new cycle beginning in Capricorn. So if you got Capricorn and Aquarius in your chart, good luck. But for all those Libras out there, you will not be so, I don't know. And all those Scorpios out there, you'll finally get what you've been really wanting. Because to be a Libra, it's been indecisive world. And for Scorpio, it's been like, well, it's close, but it's still not there, but I'll take it, you know? Or if you have planets in Scorpio, if you have planet. But so you got to think in a world space, we are completing the most major cycle of relationship and sexual energy, balance and desire, true authentic self. Scorpio is like, you know, when you're at somebody's house and they go, don't you love my new car out front? And you're like, oh yeah, it's really nice. But inside you're like, I fucking hate Kias. Oh yeah, but I have to lie. Scorpio is that true self that we don't truly expose. And when you mix that with sexual energy, where you deny yourself of your true sexual essence, which has been going on for a long time. It's like, oh, I've really had it here, but that didn't really work out, but okay, I'll settle. Scorpio will not settle because it's a fixed water sign. And when you get a fixed water sign, it's an iceberg. It's like, it does not, it's just like, sorry, like, I'm not going to break up. And Scorpio is Pluto. It is Mars. It is, if you like meat, you're going to eat meat. Like, sorry, I can't be a vegan, or vegans who hate meat, like, sorry, I can't eat meat. It's the true essence of like, I cannot do this. This is who I really am. And it's hard because this cycle has been so hard for all of us to tell our partners, to expose to our partners, to expose the world, to expose everything, our truest, deepest inner self, which this at the end of the year is going to be the biggest choice of your whole life on switching tracks or staying on a track. If you think that you can stay on that track and truly get everything that you really want, that's a huge question. I can't make that choice for you all. But I can tell you as an astrologer that the truth is, if there's something missing and you keep thinking about it every day, there's something wrong. I'm going to keep silent for a second. 2, with Pluto and Saturn in Capricorn now and Jupiter entering in 2019, we don't get this transit for 800 years at a motherfucking time, right? 800 years. This is a 1 in 800 year chance to shift your life. And the hardest part about this is it's Capricorn, which means it's not going to be comfortable. It's going to affect family. It's going to affect people in their emotional worlds, because that's all that's holding people back from choosing the life they want is emotional. Emotions are really tough because we don't want to plague people with the emotions of what we really want in our life. And the spiritual community is so messed up that they've taught everybody that treat everybody the way that they want to and don't do anything for yourself. It's like, oh no. When you mix all this energy in, and then the whole spiritual community is feeding a bunch of bullshit to people of airy fairy land and that everybody will get what they want, when the truth is the only way to get what you want is like making a choice for yourself of who you really are so the universe can bring in, because Scorpio is the attractor. In astrology, Scorpio is the 8th house. It is what brings in or manifests into you. And this is a very tough choice coming up, because when Pluto and Saturn come together, it's like this track is 800 years in the making. And we all might live 800 years with Aquarius coming and Pluto and Jupiter and Saturn conjunction and all the stuff in the 2020s. We might just be alien cyborgs that live 800 years. So you might as well start thinking that you could live 800 years. And when you look at a track like this, tracks in the universe don't change much. Sure, our life can change, and we think that we're going to change, but we always are running into the same patterns all the fucking time, right? But this is a moment in our life where, oh my gosh, if I'm on this road and it does not feel like I can get it all that I really want emotionally and my needs, Scorpio is a deep need. I said to the VIPs earlier, it's like a vampire like needing to drink blood. Like, are you going to starve yourself? You're going to keep eating rats all day? Or, I mean, there's a lot of ways I can look at this. I think the hardest part about this is, are you really living a lie? Because the lie is you know who you are. So I know I'm a raptor from like Jurassic Park, okay? I know. People see me shapeshift into my dinosaur self. That's why I have the little hands and, extreme. But I can't live my life without being the dinosaur and raging the things I need in my life and becoming the true essence of who I am. It's a very difficult time because there's so much cock blocking in the universe right now. When you now have Uranus and Taurus, which hasn't been there since the 1930s, and what happened in that time? It was after the Depression, but because it was 33. But when Uranus entered Taurus, it was the shifting of what's valuable on the planet. The federal, yeah, exactly. We did Social Security with Uranus and Taurus, but even deeper than that. If you guys have ever watched Schindler's List, have you guys watched it? Do you remember that the whole thing was about like, oh, I can get you some cigarettes, or let me get you some coffee, or let me give you some of this. It was trading of commodities became more valuable than cash dollars. Yeah, and it's going to be an interesting dichotomy, but from a spiritual perspective, it answers the question with all this desire and all these things we need emotionally to fulfill our life. Uranus and Taurus goes like, well, do you have the life that will bring it to you? Because we have to have something in our life. Taurus is an actual physical thing. Like, I want to make a phone call. I have a phone to make a phone call. Yay! The Scorpio desire of, I want to make a phone call to call my lover to sex them. Okay? That's Scorpio. Like, I need to do this. But Scorpio it's invisible. It's just an emotional feeling. Taurus is, oh, I have it. So what it creates is Uranus is breaking apart things we have that are no longer serving our deeper needs. So maybe you have a phone, but maybe it's a Nokia 5190 and it doesn't do image text messages to sext your junk to the other person. But you can try as much as you want to keep trying to sext, but you really know at the end of the day, their picture needs to come through. And so Uranus and Taurus forces people to look at what they have in their life and go, will this get what I really need done? And Taurus rules everything we hold of value. And when you mix that this is the biggest relationship transits of our life happening this year, completing with Venus retrograding in Scorpio and Libra, which deal with what I've just been talking about for the last half hour. You deal with Saturn and Pluto finishing the cycle of those two. The first things that are going to come up of value are relationships and deep inner needs. And that's the first degree of Taurus anyways, is like needing the most basic things in your life to get what your deepest inner need is. And if you don't have it, this is a huge crash course in learning to take course redirections in your life. Because if you ever looked at Saturn, have you ever looked at the glyph? It looks like a boat with its nose and the mast. Because if you ever look at Saturn, it's just a cross with just a bloop. But it actually looks like a boat chugging through the water. And the other funny part about Capricorn is it rules ships. And this is where people will enter into shipwrecks in their life if they choose not to pick the path that is deeply going to fulfill with zero question. And why is that such a hard thing in our life right now? Well, this year, Mars is in Aquarius, going to retrograde. The South Node is in Aquarius. Aquarius is the opinions of everybody else. What people on Facebook will think if I change my status. What people will think in all avenues. And it also is kind of scary because Aquarius South Node Mars is, are you holding yourself back from your own freedom? And it's going to retrograde in a couple weeks, literally. Less. What's today? The 16th? 10 days. And when Mars does its retrograde, you got to remember that Mars is the only planet that can go 2 years before it retrogrades. Every other planet has to do it within like 6 months, or every 88 days with Mercury, or every 18 months with Venus. But guess what? Why do you think men just keep pushing and pushing till the universe finally says, you need to stop, motherfucker? Is because Mars' ego will push and push till it has nothing left. And we're at a place where we all have nothing left in the tank. And that tank is an Aquarius. And Aquarius is the world. It's the interconnected web of rising higher in your life. And how ironic now that Uranus is in the place of Taurus, which means that Mars retrograde is going to be dealing with things that we have that we don't want. That's a big one. Or things that we have that we would do anything for, but maybe they're not the best for us. And so this is an interesting year because out of all the years, follow the astrology, to have a Mars and Venus retrograde in the same year is another rare event. Every year is like, is it a Venus retrograde year or is it a Mars retrograde year? It always follows that way. But to get them in the same year, back to back. So this summer we go Mars retrograde June 26. It comes out of its retrograde in September. And then in freaking October, Venus goes retrograde. This is not a coincidence year at all. 2018 isn't a year of finalizing the biggest deal of your life or finally reaching the place that you want to. It is the subtle, deepest, inner, most secret decision in your life of, this is how I really want it, and I know that I'm pressured into knowing I have to do it, and if I don't, as the Christians say, you're left behind. Now, I don't want to, because a lot of people ask the question, like, oh, well, isn't there other opportunities? Of course, but it's kind of like when, let's say, the boats leave, and of course you can get back on the boat, but maybe now you need to rent a boat, and now you're going to need to go as fast as you can, and then do you have enough gas to get there? They're already like 500 miles in front of you, and you could do everything you can and then spend all their money to get a helicopter and get dropped off on the boat. And then by the time you have no money, you have no energy, and everybody's like, well, okay, you got here. But it's like, oh my God, that was the hardest thing I ever did in my whole entire life, to get on the boats. So sure, the universe gives you free will to do whatever you want at any time, but you can do it the hard way or you can follow the universe way. Like that's basically, I think the hardest part about astrology is like us. People think ego is like driving a sports car in California and calling himself the Leo King. Okay? Like, ego is you not wanting to do what the universe is telling you to do in your heart, in your soul, and what you know, and what is creeping inside of you every day telling you what to do, and you're afraid to do it. That's ego. No, I don't want to deal with that. That's going to cause too much fucking pain. No, that's going to cost too much this. That's the hard part of Capricorn, is it is the toughest lesson in the zodiac. That is the ruler of Saturn, and Saturn's in its home sign. So when you get Saturn in its home sign, it's already extreme. But when you get Pluto, which Pluto in numerology rules 0, what does 0 do to any number? It gives it infinite power, or it erases the number. If you times anything by 0, it goes away. But if you add 0 to the equation, it can turn into billions of power, right? So when you have Saturn in Capricorn and Pluto on top, and Capricorn rules the biggest decisions in your life for the structure of your life, and it also is where the gateway to, and this is not only in tropical astrology, because really the galactic center in tropical astrology is from like 26 degrees Sag to about 29 degrees Sag. But if you actually go into sidereal astrology, where Pluto and Saturn are really at is actually at the galactic center point when you start to do the math. Because there's a 23 and a half, basically from the precession of the equinox. When we follow tropical astrology, the planets are actually 23 degrees behind the tropical zodiac. Well, Saturn and Pluto are meeting at 23 degrees. So you go back to 0 degree Capricorn, 29 degrees Sag. At the galactic center point is where this Saturn-Pluto conjunction is happening in sidereal or / Vedic astrology. So Vedic astrology and Western astrology work in both ways because they both have the same answer. I mean, 23 degrees of Capricorn with Saturn and Pluto is extreme already because of just Saturn and Pluto asking for a decision. But Saturn and Pluto at the galactic center in Vedic or in sidereal is like, oh my God, this is my shot. Like, this is it. Like, the universe, if you look at your life, you've been building everything up to this moment to make the hardest choice of your life. Now let's add Chiron. I'll just keep giving you guys as many layers as I can to help you guys, because literally, like, it's like when you add Chiron is now in Aries, and it's going to retro back to Pisces. So that means it's at the end of the zodiac and the beginning of the zodiac. The last time this happened was 1967. And I told the VIPs earlier it was a big choice for hippies to be either hippies and stay hippies or go back the other way. And most of them went back the other way. Most of them didn't stay because it was a hard time to be a hippie in 67, you know? It was like you were getting shot at, or they were trying to shut down your talk, or they still looked at you like a weirdo because there were way more whiskey drinking, suit wearing people in the government and what was going on with the Vietnam War and all this stuff. A lot more people in every revolution or any big change don't do what everybody else is doing. In the Revolutionary War, it's 19% of the people were in the Revolutionary War. 81% of the people sat around and waited to see if they were going to be a Tory or an American. When you get a big decision like this, you watch. 19% of people are going to shift their life and make the hardest decision in your life, and I guarantee you 81% of the people are going to just say, no, my life's fine, I'm okay, even though I have all this emotional repression deep inside, and I really want this and all this shit, but it's too hard. It's too hard. It's going to affect too many people. It's going to affect too many people's emotions. It's going to affect everything, and I don't want to do that. Well, why do you think that the biggest total solar eclipse we've ever experienced in our lives in America happened in the sign of Leo? And it went across the whole U.S. on October 21st of 2017. And it happened on the star Regulus. The reason why the fixed stars, that's what they're called. That's why the signs like Leo, Aquarius, Taurus, and Scorpio all have a fixed star system in them. That's why they're fixed signs. That you can see those stars on the ecliptic. The ecliptic is when you wake up in the morning and you see the sunrise, and you watch it set, you will also watch the moon follow that same ecliptic line. That's why when we have a total solar eclipse, guess what? It's always going to be on that line. The sun doesn't wake up in the morning and be a Mexican jumping bean and be like, okay, I'm going to go over there, and then I'm going to go over that way, and then I'm going to go that way, and then I'm going to set over there. There's a constant in the universe. And the fact that we had a total solar eclipse that totaled out and blackened out the sun in all of the old traditions going back from the Mayans to Egyptian to the Vedas and Vedic to Greek mythology, that is like radioactive magic being because if you think about our life, like that just doesn't happen. Like that's just like, okay, every day the sun's out and the moon, and they don't intersect, and they definitely don't block out the sun's rays. When that happened on America, that asked every American in their heart to know what their heart really wants. Leo will never be happy if it doesn't get its happiness. And so when you mix into the equation that this summer is the last solar eclipse in Leo. At the same time, all this shit that's going on that I've been telling you guys, the most unhappiest life is sitting in front of one. It's like literally the most bipolar train tracks in the world. Happy, getting everything that you ever wanted in your life by making a very tough decision and just being a boss in your life and just owning your truth, or being extremely unhappy, not getting everything that you want to try and protect and save something that you don't fucking want anyway. It's fucking insane to me when I look at this. And why do you think when Neptune's in Pisces? Of course it's insane. And why do you think Chiron's coming back to the 29th degree of Pisces, which rules insanity? That people, including yourself or others, are going to go, this is fucking crazy. I'm going to get on this side of the train. I'm going to take this train. Even though deep inside you know, oh my God, this is the train I got to take. This is the one. There's a good example I can use. And I don't want to use his name. There's an astrologer who in 1967, when this transit happened, his family was going to give him hundreds of millions of dollars when his grandfather passed. But they didn't like him doing astrology. And he had to make a major choice. They said, if you keep doing astrology, you will not get the money. And he chose astrology train and did not receive the money and became, from what I understand, kind of estranged from the family from it. People will look at you in typical society today and go, you're a fucking idiot. Take the 100 million and then go just be an astrologer. Right? But the truth is, when you choose a track, there is no such thing as, being able to just jump back on the other track. You've chosen that path or that destiny that comes with the track of the $100 million and the not of doing astrology. So do you really think that track and the way that the universe works, do you really think that the universe is going to bring you a great astrological fulfillment in your life? It doesn't really work that way for some reason. There's not a lot of hopping around in the universe when you deal with fate. The planets don't hop around and just decide, I really have to go retrograde on June 25th and 26th, depending on where you are in the world, but I'm not going to. That's not how the universe works. So for a human to think that the toughest choice of their life that they make, whatever that may be, thinks that they can jump trains mid getting on those tracks is kind of insane in a weird way. And this is where my biggest battle with most of my fans is that true free will doesn't exist. That free will exists at choice points, and that's pretty much it. I really wish I could go to Mars and breathe air, but I would have an air mask on. That's not real free will. I can go for hours about proving through scientific that we do not have free will. But I think when we add to this equation this insanity complex, which Chiron at 29 degrees is an insanity complex, is that people will think you're insane if you choose the path in which in your heart and your deeper inner God and your deeper inner soul and your deepest knowing it is. And people will think you're crazy. You're fucking crazy. You had this. You could have had this. You could have. It's like people don't get it because the only person that understands is your own heart. And that's why the North Node is finishing in Leo, and it gets out in Leo in November. And then the North Node moves into Cancer, and Saturn, and the South Node moves into Capricorn. And those polarities are destiny polarities. And so this is about happiness. I know, yes, it's about desire. I know it's about connections and relationships and all that, but this is about happiness. And there is no such thing as, trying to love something in life, whether it's your path, your job, a relationship that you fully don't love. And that's where there is a difference between true love and unconditional love. Unconditional love is, I love that you all came. If you need help to go to the bathroom, I'm glad to walk you there, but I'm not going to pull down your pants for you and do it for you. Unless I truly love you. Then I probably want to see what's under there, like what's going on? And it weighs on me to channel this information for the future because it's hard, because if we look at all the other things going on that I talked about on tour, we just brought up the relationship one, but I'm going to go deeper into that. When it comes to our government and our money and stuff like that, all that is going to change so much that the path that you choose right now, when it goes crazy and it changes in your life, is it the path you're on? And if it's got issues already, how are you going to deal when that stuff gets real funky dunky? If you're not happy, you're not in a good place, and now all this crazy stuff's going on in the world, on top of the government becomes with relationship aspects, not only for all of us, but country relationships going really crazy and weird. I actually predicted this before I even knew Trump was going to North Korea. I was like, oh, Uranus is in Taurus. That's when the League of Nations was formed. That's when all these countries that you wouldn't expect start becoming best friends. Like one time America and Russia invaded fucking Germany together. Now they're against each other. When you have Uranus and Taurus, countries change, connections. It could be that America and Canada do not become best friends. That is an actual possibility during this transit that's coming up in this future. The world is going to change so much that people are going to be blown away, and the media is going to try to tell you that it's the wrong thing or da-da-da-da, because they have no idea of what's going on in the shifting of cycles. The problem with the media at the moment is they are stuck on a one-size-fits-all timeline, that it should always look like this forever. And we are in a universe that changes. When we go into looking at the change of home and family, because all this energy is going to be opposing Cancer, you need to remember that the traditions of what family is changed forever. We already know this, and especially because family always have a relationship involved. And when you've got relationship stuff changing so much at this current time in life, and when you look at traditions in the world changing forever, the quote-unquote typical family is extremely becoming more rare and rare and rare as far as you go. And there's little pockets of communities of people who are trying to do that in that area, and they feel that they're safe and protected there, and living in a little bubble that, no, it won't affect us. We're okay over here. But the amount of energy that's coming to change the world is unescapable. And that's, I think, the scariest part for some people to grip onto emotionally, is that family is not based upon what we know. Family, whether it's friends, whether it's spiritual people, whether it's whatever is truly supporting your authentic, true self. Family is not because I married somebody and we had a kid and we're a family. Family is emotional support on the level that I and you feel fully. Because I know more families that don't support each other, but they're just there because they want to call themselves a fucking family. And that's the hardest thing with these eclipses, is there's the North Node in Cancer, and the eclipses are coming into Cancer, and they're going to always oppose Saturn and Pluto for the next 2 years. Oh my gosh, every time the moon comes into Cancer to try and keep it all together, oh wait, it's in a battle with Saturn. And guess who's going to win? Saturn, because he's got his henchmen. He's also going to have Jupiter, the biggest planet in the zodiac. So every time the moon comes into Cancer, every month, when you're going to try and keep it all together emotionally, boom, nope, oh shit. Astrology is really a game between battles, basically, and watching how the characters all win. And for us, it's our conscious realms. And so what we define as family is going to change forever now. It's kind of like The Walking Dead. Do you guys ever watch that show? Like that is what I like envision the new family. Like even though if you don't know the show, Rick has a baby, the main character, and it's not his baby. It's his best friend who fucked his wife when they thought he was dead. But he still raises the baby, you know. And then other people team in and kind of help, you know. That's what's going to be so crazy about this is when you deal with traditions and how it's going to die and be reborn forever, you need to remember that in the 1700s when this came in, you know, there were some really extreme traditions that had to end that go back from the Renaissance period that were very weird, that were very dark. You got to remember that George Washington died because they just kept throwing leeches on him. That's literally how he died, was from leeches. That would not be used anymore. The problem that comes with this new world, because the Illuminati that are the bad Illuminati, not the good Illuminati, have been pushing this whole thing of a new world order. And I know a lot of people have been waiting for that one for a long time. And if any of you guys are into conspiracy stuff like I am, there's shit out there that's real. I couldn't be more honest with you all astrologically that a new world order is Jupiter, South Node, Saturn, and Pluto in Capricorn in 2019. That's new order in the world. The last time it happened was the last time there was a new world order was the 1200s. And the Dark Ages came because that new world order was about suppression. But the good news is during 1282, Uranus was in opposition in Cancer, opposing all this Capricorn. So of course it was like the world was against us in the new world order. Now Uranus is in trine, which means that this new world order is just about a higher quality of life. But the quality of life comes into a deeper consideration of whether or not you're ready to have a better one. And the problem with Taurus is people get stuck in the same routine, in the same place, and they think it's the best they can have. And the truth is Uranus is trying to teach us all over the next 8 years that, I'm sorry, you don't have the best. This is not the best situation in your life. There is better. And that's another hard one to swallow. I think that's the hardest pill to swallow is, really, is there a better situation out there for me in my life? And I think when I look way beyond the future, I'm only talking about now into 2019. I haven't even talked about 2020 or 2021 or 2022 and 2023. We're having the next biggest cycle on January of 2020, which is Saturn and Jupiter, the two biggest planets. When you get Saturn, right? Saturn is like, no. Do not do it. And then you get Jupiter, which is like, fuck it, let's do it. I don't care. Bring everybody. Whatever. When you get these two together, they help each other out. They help each other by Jupiter goes, okay, there's certain things I won't do, but Saturn, there's certain things that you should do. And they learn from each other. And it's these train tracks or these boats we pick taking off at an extreme rate. Aquarius is an alien spaceship. And you're getting the two biggest planets to conjunct there, which haven't conjunct there in any of our lives, because the last time for the last 100 years, guess where Jupiter and Saturn have been conjuncting? Earth signs. This is the first time in our lives Jupiter and Saturn will meet in air together. Now, a little fun fact about Jupiter and Saturn is it always happens on the 0 years. So the last one was 2000. and it was in Taurus. The last one was 1980. The last one was 1960. So let's do some fun facts. Who was a president that died that was elected in 1960? Who was a president that got shot and almost died in 1980? Who was a president in 2000 who showed up and had a really weird situation go on to kind of avert him from the whole situation by winning an election in a court and at the same time just so happened to get missed by a plane that was supposed to hit the White House? Bush. 0-year presidents do not have very good luck, okay, with death or with almost being killed. It always happens. Lincoln, 1860. Every time Jupiter and Saturn meet and a president is inaugurated, guess what? And it's weird. They have to be inaugurated. There's presidents that were around during like 1940 or, like when Roosevelt was around forever. You know what I mean? Like, it's the inauguration year of a president in that year that changes it, and they always get shot. Or Garfield, 1880, dies within a year of being in office. The president, whoever it might be, that will be inaugurated in 2020, if, let's say, Trump doesn't make it to there, or he dies, or if for some reason something happens, okay? I don't know if he's going to go to jail, but I have a weird thing about his health.
Spill the tea.
Spill the tea. I believe that 2019 is going to be very difficult for his health. I think that the stress and the amount of energy that he's been dealing with has been a lot. And if you look at his chart, being a Leo rising at 29 degrees, Capricorn is the ruler of his 6th house. He's about to have a Saturn opposition with Pluto to his own Saturn. He's about to have a Saturn and Pluto opposition to his Venus, which Venus rules his 10th house, which also is your career and your lifelong, and there's going to be the hardest transit of anybody to ever have a Saturn and Pluto to that. So I believe it will be a health issue that will cause him to maybe not be able to continue on, or he would have to get through it. We might see Mike Pence be there for a while or something. Yeah, he's a weirdo. But whoever becomes. And I don't know why I get this from my guide. So I believe there's going to be a president that, whether it's Trump saves the day and he gets elected again, and then fucking they assassinate him, or they try to, and then we're all in a ruckus now, and the Civil War stuff starts to break out. You got to remember, with Neptune and Pisces, we're on Civil War brink. But that 2020 president, especially with it being in Aquarius, this Jupiter-Saturn, which is unpredictable, crazy, is going to look like the one that will save it all, and everybody's excited. And of course, something will happen and just drop everybody to like, and everybody will be looking for some crazy thing. When Kennedy, that's a good question. I'd have to look. I think it was, it probably was let's see, so I can do it in my head. So 2000 was Taurus, and then if we go back 20 years for Reagan, which it was Jupiter and Saturn and Capricorn. 80. So no, it wasn't there. It was Jupiter and Saturn in Virgo. And then if we go back to the Virgo one, I think it was 1960 would have been Capricorn, because in 57 was Saturn and Sag, and 59 was the beginnings of Saturn and Capricorn. So we're getting the Kennedy one. Well, not really, because it's going to be in Aquarius, sorry. So, but with Jupiter and Saturn still in Capricorn in 2019, technically there is a Kennedy aspect happening in 2019. At the very end, right before the year of the election of 2020. Yeah, when I'm seeing this health issue too. So definitely there's some weird stuff going on. I'm just letting you all know it's not going to just be a traditional, okay, the president's there and then we re-elect or whatever. This thing is about to have the whole fucking tailspin come. And I definitely don't think it's Mueller, and I definitely don't think it's any of that. This has to do with something that nobody's thinking of, or all of us don't know yet. But when you look at 2020 with Jupiter and Saturn, that's the bringing in of what we call like the new age, right? Like, because Aquarius is what represents this new age. And what I think is crazy about it is the 2020s, you do not want to miss your own train now, because Aquarius is liberation, and it is connection, and it is finding the world you've always wanted. It's like reaching, in tarot we call it the world card, okay? It's like getting the world card. But it's like if you want to go to Disneyland and you're going to hop on a train that's going to go east, good luck getting to Disneyland. That's going to be what's difficult about the 2020s for people, or people are going to feel like, I need to revolt because I'm unhappy. Because most people are not going to choose this tough decision. It's too hard for a lot of people. For the spiritual gangsters out there, they're going to make the fucking choice. You know? And that's really, I think, why I'm here to say what the future of the future is. If I were to put it in layman's terms, what the future of the future is, are you a spiritual gangster, or are you a fraud to being a spiritual light worker? Did you come down here to do the work when it's going to be the toughest choices of your life? Or did you come down here to try and live this life in a way that you hopefully wanted to go and just kind of keep it down there and join everybody else that's too afraid to make the hard choices to be a spiritual gangster? That's a very crazy way to look at the future. Because our founding fathers of this nation are known for stepping up when it was the hardest choice against everything. We're exactly at the same point Pluto was 248 years ago when the Boston Tea Party was. No coincidence we're dealing with taxes and tariffs and all that stuff at the same time right now. And there is technically a Tea Party now, but it's kind of dying, which is kind of funny. But what I'm trying to show is that we're at a place right now where this whole thing about spirituality and everything has nothing to do with how much yoga you do, what you eat, or any of that. It has to do with whether or not you're ready to step into true alignment and do the job that you were here to do. And what's hard is it is opposite of what the world is telling you to do. It is opposite of what other people think is best for you. Being a light worker is being a light shower and showing the way. And the biggest question of 2018 is whether or not you step up to the plate, to the biggest plate we ever have had. It is a full count, 2 outs, bases loaded, and you're down by 3. And the stadium's full, and everybody's watching. Are you going to just sit there and hope for a walk, or are you going to win the game? And I think that's what's the hardest choice for everybody at this moment. Which kind of sucks because, throughout the tour, it's been very kind of more lively and more jokey and everything, but I feel like it's such a serious deal that I had to kind of show up here and drop the bomb. Like I was thinking today, I'm like, well, the moon's in Leo, this will be fun, and I'll just do crazy jokes the whole time and teach everybody the thing. But the truth is I came to the end of this tour and it's like, especially as a Leo, and we've got the moon in Leo, we got Venus in Leo, like I'm just trying to show that the Leo way is to do it the Leo way. Like, live the greatest life you want, but it's not easy. Like, it requires you to listen to your heart. And the problem with being a Leo is nobody gets when you're unhappy. Like, oh my gosh, like you've got everything, or da-da-da. It's like, no, that doesn't make me happy. Like, this makes me happy. Oh, that's the problem with the opposition of Aquarius, with the South Node and with Mars, is everybody's got their 2 cents of, oh no, this is the reason why you're not happy. And every spiritual person on the block now is like, listen, the reason why, it's your reflection, and you're the reason why, and da-da-da-da-da. You need to call this person, and you need to get saged, and then you need to go to this person, and I know the best way for you. I know the best way for you, right? People could say that about me right now, but I'm showing people that these are the options, and you have your own way that you get to go with it. I'm just being a translator, and that's it. Like, everybody takes it as whatever they want. I'm not going to tell you if you don't make this choice, like, you're a bad person, because everybody's here on their own unique journey. But being that 2018 is such a significant year about your truest heart and your truest desires and your truest need for connection. I see a therapist once a week because I'm fucking insane. And my therapist tells me, David, and he's a Leo too. Of course I'd get a Leo therapist. He always goes, the reason why a lot of people don't get you is you're so engaged. You need people back in your life that are engaged. If they're not engaged, then you just feel like, And that made a lot of sense to me being a Leo. And with a lot of Scorpio and Taurus, which is all what's going on in the zodiac right now, is if your life doesn't feel like it's engaging back to you at the same intensity and vibration and heart energy and it's off. And when you're off alignment in your life, you cannot manifest what you want correctly. You cannot get the things that you want in your life correctly. And it becomes a very slippery slope really freaking quick. And engagement is what we are all desiring at the moment. True engagement to relationships, to careers, to paths, to a life that feels like it is all that you've ever wanted and desired. And I know that people think that it's impossible, that there's always going to be imperfections, which there are. But when it comes to your heart and your desires and your deepest knowing of what truly you feel you want and it's engaged back to you, that actually exists on the planet. And the way that the planets are finishing up at the end of this year is your biggest call of whether or not you're going to follow that engagement or deny it. It's fun to talk about the world and money and all this stuff, but I'll be honest with you, I could give a flying fuck. I care more about people's spiritual journeys. I care more about this decision, because if we are going to change the world, it's not going to be done by an organization. Like, give all this money to Hillary and she'll change the world. Like, sorry, not like that doesn't happen. It really is about empowered individuals that change the world, that know themselves, that don't question it, that have the right partnerships and friendships and people that support them, that know their cause, that know their reason, that know that same engagement back. And those are the people that change the world. And those are the people that show the way. And that's, I think, the hardest part right now is not only in the media, but I think that everybody is in a... Everybody, including presidents, including leaders of the world, are in a place of like, gosh, man, I know I got to do this, but I don't know. And fate is a funky deal, because whenever you step into the term fate, guess what? That means you're locked in. But how else does a clock or gears work? They're locked in. What happens when the chain slips on your bicycle? You go nowhere. And this is a choice of whether or not you're ready to engage your life and click it into a better gear that is fully connected instead of the chain always falling off and slipping all the time. Because if we look at the 2020s, it is either going to be a haven for you in your life or the biggest disruptor and craziest place on the planet. That's the opposition of Aquarius. It is a utopia or a motherfucking lunatic bin of crazy people. Now, Dolores Cannon, I don't know if you all remember her, but she talked about the 3 waves that came in on the planet of generations. The people born from like the 40s and 50s and 60s that kind of brought in this wave of spirituality and brought it into a world in which nobody was ready for it. And they had a very tough job because nobody was ready for it. The second wave, which are late 70s, people born in the 80s and the 90s, which kind of got to come off the back of another wave. I live in California where when you get a set of waves, right, the first wave's great. Usually you pass that one up because you know the next one's going to be a little bit bigger. So the second wave comes in because it's got the momentum of that first wave to go, look at, people are ready for it. I'm just dousing the energy now. Let's do it. And then there's these kids that have been born in the last 18 years who out of the fucking gate are smarter than all of us in this room and already get it all and already understand the world and already understand what to do with it. And that's the third wave. The 2020s are going to be the beginning of this third wave starting to rise up, while the second wave is at its peak and the third wave is rising. And when you get to that point, you get to massive world changes, not just governmental or anything. We are talking outer beings. We are talking about multidimensional beings. We are about seeing and unearthing the understanding of why we are here. We are reaching a place with where we are with humanity, because Aquarius rules humanity, where humanity is reaching a peak. And whenever any species reaches a peak, there is always something that interjects that. And that is what's coming in the 2020s. With all the Aquarius, with Pluto entering in there in 2023, back into 2024, with Saturn and Jupiter, the 2 biggest planets in their biggest cycle happening for the first time in our lives in Aquarius. If you look at the precession of the equinox, and if you look up and see where we are in the ages, we're actually at the very tail. Well, it's funny because the ages go backwards. So we're actually at the very beginnings of Pisces, finally at the cusp, getting ready to move into Aquarius for the age of Aquarius. Even in the Bible, it always says the man with the man with the barrel of water will show up. And that's what this is about, is the 2020s is that. But also in like every 2,000-year cycle, there is always somebody who pops up and says they know the way, or shows up, or some sort of religious aspect. And what scares me the most about the spiritual community and this new home that is going to be built is the dogma that is attaching in the spiritual community, which the 2020s will be the greatest test of whether or not we create spiritual dogma. Like, if you don't do yoga on Mondays, you're not spiritual. Or if you don't eat a certain way, you're not spiritual. Or if you're on a Western medicine or see a doctor, you're not spiritual. These are the things that are going to come into the biggest play as humanity peaks, as the creation of this new world, is, are we going to create dogma, or are we going to create true freedom? And the whole age of Aquarius is, once humanity understands freedom, understands true unity with allowing everybody to be individual, people think it's about togetherness. It's not. Uranus is about individuality that comes together with a unified group of individualized people that are accepting of the individuality of each other. Not everybody wearing white yoga shirts. Not everybody preaching to the same thing. Not everybody wearing the same hairstyle. Not everybody wearing the same glasses. Not everybody doing yoga at the same time. Not everybody eating the same food all at the same time. Let's be honest with you. Like for me, patchouli oil is disgusting. I wear Cartier French cologne because I like to smell I like to swoon the ladies. But the community is becoming, because that's Aquarius, it's community. And the spiritual community, what scares me is somebody is going to rise up and create a community of dogma. And that's how you know to run the fuck the other way. Or rise up to it. Which I believe a lot of the light workers that are coming through this year and the people who pick the path that they know is right, that's their boss they will face at the end of the video game, is the dogmatic spiritual guru that will look like bringing everybody together at the same way when that is not the way. It was tried 2,000 years ago with Jesus, and we all got to the end and this cycle and realized we are all different. It happened 2,000 years before that with the end of Egypt. And well, even though Egypt didn't truly end until, Cleopatra, and we all know the story with Mark Antony and that little, hoe bag. No, I'm just kidding. It was more like if you look at the shifts of every 2,000 years, there's always this rise, whether it was Horus 4,000 years ago, or you will see the rise of some sort of figure. And but it's usually hundreds of years after this figure rises that people start to follow it or not. And I think the 2020s to me are, can we live individually? Because the truth is the censorship that comes will be broken through. With Saturn and Pluto and Jupiter, it's going to feel like, oh my gosh, we need to break through this. And then guess what? The universe is like, okay, let's add Jupiter and Saturn conjunct in Aquarius. Let's add, all this Aquarius energy. Let's add Pluto in there. Let's do that. And that's what happened with the American Revolution. Not necessarily with Jupiter, but it was the exact same thing. Pluto went into Aquarius. This revolution happened in France and America. And there was a little moment there of everybody living free. And we were a republic. But then the Whigs lost control, and there was some people called the Democrats that came and wanted a democracy and wanted to change a lot of those republic ways. And then there was a man in 1860 who came up and called himself a Republican and tried to hold on to these values, but also at the same time set some sort of precedent saying individual rights are important for everybody. And so that means individual rights need to be fair for everybody. Of course, states are allowed to do what you want, but when a state has individual rights that don't allow an individual to have their own rights, that doesn't work. And so we're at, and I'm combining all my lectures because what I have determined of what the 2020s will be is the shifting of America with Pluto in Capricorn at the exact position coming up in the next couple years of where the Declaration of Independence was written. This will be the choice of America continuing to stay a republic or move up the ladder towards a more social aspect. If you understand the ladder of sociology, especially in government, all the way to the right is basically anarchy. And then you move forward and you get to things like a republic. Then you go to a democracy. Then you go to socialism. Then you go to basically fascism / communism. The biggest decision of this Aquarian thing will be if people are going to hold on to, think about this in your head. What would happen if they got rid of the Second Amendment? Do you think with Neptune and Pisces, do you think the exact same thing that happened when people started to say, we're no longer allowing you to have the right to do this? I'm not saying that guns are bad either, or, but whatever the situation is, every time the Neptune and Pisces in American comes, A right that people had is now looked at as bad. So back then it was slavery. Now people are looking at guns the same way. And why do you think they're trying to get rid of all the rights? Because people think it's bad. But what's interesting and different about this time is that this is an amendment that the founding fathers wrote in. There was no amendment saying, like, you're allowed to own a slave. Like, that was not an amendment in the original amendments. This is on a deep federal level of what happens if they choose to change the foundation of this government? What will happen to the reaction to the world and to the people inside of it? That is, to me, going to be the craziest thing if that happens, and watching how people revolt. Because you got to remember that the other part of Aquarius is revolting. And somewhat anarchy, too. So it pegs the deepest question at the end of all this. That you know, if you listen deep in your heart, this shit's going to go down and go crazy in the future if you look at it. But you can ride through the middle of it in the eye of the storm by this year making the toughest choice of your whole entire life to get on the train you know you need to be on. But that tough choice comes with a prize. And that prize is the eye through the needle, through the chaos and the craziness that is coming. So we're going to take a break. When we come back from the break in the next half hour, I do question and answer for the hour. So you can ask anything, but there's a couple rules. One, you can't ask about your sun sign because nobody else might be the same sun sign as you. Two, we don't want to hear your whole life story either. Three, we don't want to hear your chart. I've got Mars and Saturn, or I've got Saturn and Pluto, or I got this, because we don't. It's unfair to everybody in this room. But it's an open forum for wherever you want to talk about. And it, of course, if it's about the lecture tonight, or if it's about anything that you've ever wanted to ask me, even personal stuff, it's all good. So that's what we're going to talk about when we get back. And I hope that the lecture that I did tonight, I know it might sound a little creepy and grim, but it's coming from a place of honesty and truth. So, thank you.